Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's April 30th. It is approximately 5:04 p.m. Just a reminder to everybody, please put your cell phones on silent. I can verify that the meeting notice requirements were met. I can verify that we have a quorum of the Board of Directors. First order of business is the approval of the previous minutes. We have 4 in total. January 30th, February 9th, February 27th, March 8th. We have a first from the board. We have a second. All those in favor? Minutes are approved. First order of business, we're going to turn it over to our landscaping committee. They're going to provide us with an update throughout the community. Just give me 1 second till I have to upload their slide, so give me 1 moment. We'll get there.
Okay, good.
Should I use this as well?
Yeah.
Turn it on. It's off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hi. I'm Susan Harrington, one of the co-chairs of the Landscape Committee, along with Mary Dew. Mary and I flipped a coin and I lost, so I get to do the presentation. So the punchline on this chart is that obviously our landscaping, especially in some areas, looks pretty bad. Past years, budgets for landscaping have been minimal for various reasons. Hurricane damaged some areas, and we have a continuing issue with very poor soil. It's very alkaline. And I have a chart that I love to show or talk about. This is a chart from a study that was commissioned in 2015 by the Quarry Transition Committee, and it was done by LAN, Land Associates, an engineering company that did some soil samples and water samples, and they said in their report basically that we have very alkaline soil, obviously from the limestone that we're sitting on top of. And what my favorite part is right here on the eastern part of the quarry, that little yellow line down at the bottom says that it's unviable for plant growth. So that's why we're having this trouble everywhere, but especially on that side of the quarry. Here's some examples of how some of the bad areas that we look at down at the bottom. This is the limestone and East Quarry Drive island there, where we have some really sick looking plants. This is the beach club here right in the front. It's very tired looking, and things have been dying over time. And over on the left here is the West Quarry berm on the very far left side, where we had some hurricane damage and other dying plants, and the median as well. So the Landscape Committee in January toured the community, and we determined the most awful areas that we would like to see work first. And these were the worst of the worst. That included East Quarry Drive and Limestone, as I mentioned, West Quarry Drive berm and medians, the front of the beach club, the entrance, the front entrance right in between the gates is kind of sick looking. The west gate entrance doesn't look too bad, but there's some kind of sick looking areas there. Most of the islands and the cul-de-sacs don't look great. North Quarry Drive and the Fieldstone, there's a wall in between the homes, and there's a lot of dead areas there. And there's a triangle at North Quarry Drive and Fieldstone that looks pretty bad. And then Orr's Island has some big blank areas where a bunch of trees came down. This is just a chart. What I showed in the last chart was the worst of the worst, but we did tour around the whole community, and there were a bunch of areas you can see, hopefully in red, where we looked and thought areas needed improvement. So last summer, we had, or this was kind of prior to when I was on the committee had tried to save up money rather than spending it on new plants to hire a design architect, and the bids came back at about somewhere between $20,000 and $30,000. So, and the one that looked most viable to be selected was around $30,000. Then Irma hit, and all that money went away. In the meantime, Centron acquired a landscape design architect who they offered to us for use for free. So we took them up on the offer. And we met with them early March and reviewed the areas to be repaired and requested them to do designs and bids for us. Then about that time, our new committee, which consisted of a lot more members, and we were happy to see the new members join us, met again with Centron. They had completed their designs, and we took a look at them and asked them to tweak them here and there, and then the following week they gave us the final bids and designs. And then we turned it over to Adam, and he sent out the same design with the same plans to a couple of other companies to ask for bids, just to make sure that Centron was in the ballpark and kind of to keep them honest. One of the companies decided to no bid. The other one, Blue, as I showed here, was about $50,000 higher than Centron's bid. So we figured we were in the ballpark there. So the committee did choose Centron based upon the cost, and we decided to prioritize the plantings in this order: the front of the beach club, the front gate planter, and then Limestone Island on East Quarry Drive, the islands inside of the west gate that we had talked about to pump them up a bit, and then the West Quarry Drive berm on the left-hand side as you drive into the quarry, and the West Quarry Drive medians. And we decided on this priority based on which were the absolute worst and which areas most of the community was going to see most often. The planting bids themselves included in all areas significant amounts of soil. So as I mentioned, our soil here, what little there is of it is pretty alkaline. So we are going to be adding soil to everything before we add new plants. And of course, mulch and labor. And then Centron did provide a 1-year warranty for all of the plantings. Or if we're working on a new maintenance contract, which I'll talk about in a minute, but if they are selected for that new maintenance contract, they will warranty those plants through the duration of that new contract. Centron also broke up bids into different planting beds for each major area. And sections of each bid can be chosen by us to be accomplished now, which is important because we won't have quite enough money to do everything we want to do for each major area. Here are some of the plants that we're putting in the different areas. Blue agave would be bougainvilleas, carissa. In front of the beach club, we have 3 royal palms, the big tall ones. One came down, and so we'll be replacing to make a 4th, so we have a nice symmetrical look. We've got Thai, ficus, bromeliads. And then on the west gate, as you come in, there's a little hill across from the entrance. We're going to be putting in a form in the shape of a cube and filling that with annuals. And additional areas or additional plants for the West Quarry berm and West Quarry medians. Just a comment on the West Quarry berm, because that's going to be exposed to what will be Collier Boulevard. We wanted to put a good hedge type plant along that line. And so we're starting with the blank areas now where there's nothing there, where it came down in the hurricane or otherwise died. And we found that fishtail palms grow really fast and really thick, and so they're hard to get through. So not only are they hard to get through, but they might help a little bit with any sound that comes through as well. But where we have trees there and the fishtail palms would hit them, we don't want to do that because they'll crowd out the nice, pretty trees we have. So we'll try to put podocarpus or something similar to that. And then in the West Quarry medians, we'll have more colorful type plants. Okay, this is a pretty busy chart, but it just reflects what we think the remaining budget is versus the plan estimates. And Jerry Solomon took a look at this and didn't disagree with it, so I assume it's okay. But they separated out in our budget this year what the beach club budget for plantings was, and this is what the estimate came in at. And then for the rest of the common areas in the community, we think we have this much left to spend over what's been spent already versus these 4 areas, the front entrance, West Gate, Limestone, and West Quarry berm. So as you can see, we do have funding for the year for those areas. We do have quite a bit of funding for irrigation repairs that we think will be spent. And with what's left in these 2 areas, plus that, and a few other areas, we might have some extra funds within the landscaping. We think we can do the West Quarry median. But if we can't do the whole thing, at least we have funding now to do a portion of it, the worst few beds. And as I mentioned, Centron will allow us to do those few beds. So our committee is recommending to the board to go ahead and fund and move forward with the plantings for the beach club, front entrance, West Gate entrance, Limestone Island, West Quarry berm, and part of the West Quarry median area up to what we have funded to date. And then in the October timeframe, then we know better what our remaining funding is in the landscape area to do the remaining of the West Quarry berm, plus maybe some of the other areas that we had talked about earlier. The other major thing we're working on right now is the maintenance contract. Our current contract with Centron did expire March 31st. The board decided to extend the contract with Centron month to month to allow the expiration to occur on June 30th, so that when we get our new contract, it'll be for 2 years, and will expire on June 30th of 2020. And so if we keep it on that cycle, it will allow new boards time to get on board with what's going on with landscaping so that they can get a better understanding of what to approve or not approve. So we do have plans in place to put the new contract in effect as of July 1st. So in the 2016-2017 timeframe, the landscape committee at that time developed some good criteria to include in the request for proposal, as well as a list of desired bidders. And the current committee tweaked and finalized all of those criteria and bidders and submitted that off to Adam to get out. And so he developed the request for proposal and sent that out to those bidders on April 3rd. And the bidders were requested to respond by April 23rd. So we had 7 bidders. 3 of them submitted proposals, 4 of them no bid. And the 3 that did submit were Buttonwood, Cintron, and Green Heron. And so our next steps are, we just got those bids back, and the landscape committee will be going through those. Adam's doing an analysis for us so we can look at it apples to apples. So we'll be looking at it late this week at our next meeting to take a look to see if they all met what was requested, and then review the references. By talking to those references, we'll have meetings with the bidders to ask them additional questions and make a selection. We want to get that done within this next month so that we can make a recommendation to the board to make the selection by June 1st, so that if there is a transition to another company, they have 30 days to do so. That's all I have.
Great job by the committee. I'll have you know that committee is probably in charge of the largest single expenditure we make.
Lights off.
So really.
Lights off.
Did you hear anything I just said? That committee's in charge of the single largest expenditure we make, the maintenance and irrigation contract. Okay. Oh, okay, we got Adam, you're up.
So real quick, I wanted to touch on a couple quick items, and then we'll turn it over to the rest of the business of the board meeting. IRMA update. The landscaping portion of the IRMA update for cleanup is pretty much done. We've got one more large delivery of sod coming up. We do have some areas of sod that died throughout the community that have those piles on it during the months of cleanup. So we do have to get those yanked out. You'll notice into the dark brown areas throughout the community that have some weed growth. They've been sprayed for weeds, they're dying. But several areas the weed growth was too much. North Quarry is one of the bigger portions of it, kind of bordering the golf course. So we're going to be yanking that up in the next week and getting all that sod replaced. The rest of the IRMA repairs are kind of on hold right now. The reason being, our landscape committee is kind of taking the lead on this, and it's their expertise, but we're in a little bit of a dispute with our insurance carrier. Their recommendations for repair for the beach club roof was for a patch job. It was to take tiles from the 2 guardhouses, because those will be redone completely. So they would then cannibalize those tiles and use them for repairs up here at the beach club. Landscape committee insurance committee objected as doing that type of repair work does not, you cannot then certify that the roof has been repaired correctly. The county requires that certification. So the committee has objected. We've contracted with CMR Roofing. They're doing an additional inspection, and they're turning those inspection reports over to our insurance carrier. And this might take a little while, but we're going to be pretty confident and pretty steadfast in our approach at making sure that the beach club gets a new roof. It's not a patch job that isn't certified. We get what we're supposed to get here at the beach club. Because of that, some of the other items are still on hold, including the shade structures, the chandeliers in the breezeway, the ceiling fans, and some other various light fixtures. Tree trim schedule. We're in contact with our annual tree trimming contract, Johnson Trees. We're looking to begin that end of June, beginning of July. That tree trim throughout the community usually takes 3 to 4 weeks. Information as that becomes finalized. Community-wide pressure washing, we're looking to start late September, early October. Our contractor has been selected. They do have availability around that time, so we're going to have the community cleaned up after rainy season. Q-bar operating hours, we're going to be looking to mid-May. We're going to start adjusting some of the operating hours, but then starting June, beginning of June, we're going to be looking to do closures 1 to 2 days a week, preferably Mondays and Tuesdays. Final topic here is our littoral plantings. For the past year, myself, Rolf, members of the Lakes Committee, members of the Heritage Bay Umbrella Association have been meeting to discuss funding of littoral plantings around the lakes. Those that aren't aware, littoral plantings are the landscaping that you see that actually exists in the lake around the boundaries of all the different ponds and lakes throughout the community. Littoral plantings are good. They do 2 things. One, they help with erosion. So when you have heavy rainfall that comes off of the lake shore, it slows that water down so that you don't have huge erosion ruts. As well, it helps with nurseries for fish, and fish are good for the lakes because it keeps them healthy as well too. We've been working on this project for quite some time, but we believe that we have a design and plan with our lake contractor, Collier Environmental. The first slide I'll show you is some of the littoral plantings that will be going in the community. It's hard to see, but the blue dots and blue areas are where we're going to concentrate with some of these plantings. Up here at the beach club, up at the golf club on their pond side, and some of the other areas we're going to concentrate on the exit and entrance culverts and the flow tubes that you see where the water comes in and out. We're going to try to get plantings around those to hide those big concrete basins and to hide those various different control structures. And as well, we definitely need to beautify some of these areas, especially around the beach club and specific ponds around the community. The following are some examples that we have chosen that we're going to start planting throughout the community. The first is bicolor canna. That's an orange and yellow flowering broadleaf littoral. The next is Canna flaccida. That is a yellow flower with another broadleaf. Spike rush, which we already have in the community. We're going to continue that theme in different areas. Spartina patens. We don't have that, but it does look very similar. But that is a thinner blade. And then finally cordgrass, which again we have a lot of that throughout the community too. Some of our selections we have to be very strategic for because our lake banks have the same issues that our landscaping throughout the community have. Poor soil conditions, native lime rock, and crushed limestone. So for every plant material that we put in, soil is going to be going in with this as well. So it's kind of a landscaping project, but it's not because it's on our littoral shelves. But this will go for a long extended project. We're going to get some of it done this year, and we're going to tackle more of it next year and the following year. This is a good 3 to 5 year plan that the association is taking on to make sure that the ponds have good erosion control and they beautify them. Turn it over to Jerry.
Okay, we're going to walk you through how we've been doing as an association the first quarter of 2018 and try to make it easy for you to follow. If you just follow the red circles, in March year to date, we have made, I'll do round numbers here, a little over $9,000. At the same time last year, we had lost $134,000. So it's a big difference, but I want to explain, and that's, excuse me, take that back, that's versus our budget. So we are doing a lot better versus our budget. And why are we doing better than our budget? From a revenue point of view, we never do very different than we plan, because most of our revenue comes into assessments, and that's a fixed number. So we're ahead by $5,000, not much here, we don't expect it. The next place we're ahead is what we call gross profit here, which we're just taking our revenue less our cost of sales for food and beverage, and we have a big pickup here. And the reason we do is because the cost of sales, food and beverage, has improved from our budget, and our budget was a reflection of last year. It's improved from 46% to 39%, and a lower number is an improvement here. So great job by everyone that deals with the kitchen, really doing a good job. The next big pickup I want to explain versus budget is in repairs and maintenance. Now, that is not necessarily something that's going to withstand the test of time. When we look at accounting numbers, there's real permanent differences and what we call timing differences. We might have planned to spend the money now, but we haven't spent it yet. So that's going to start reversing itself. Okay, some things we put off. So we won't count on that for the full year. So we are $143,000. About half of that is real, and half is going to be spent in a later month. So bottom line versus the budget, we're in good shape through the busiest quarter of the year. Okay, now if we look at the same thing versus last year, okay, obviously the first column is going to be the same. We made $9,000 so far, and last year we had lost $115,000 in the first quarter. Okay, so we are better than last year by $124,000. The performance we have here reflects one major difference in the way we account for things. I don't want this to be an accounting seminar here, but there's something you need to understand. One of our big expenditures is mulch. And last year, we took the $280,000 for mulch and they just divided it by 12. So they would have expended 3/12 of it in the first 3 months last year. This year, we charged the mulch to when we spent it. All $280,000 were charged for February. So we're really doing a lot better versus last year than $124,000 would indicate, because we paid for all the mulch so far. You with me on that? Okay, good. The other big differences I want to point out are contracts. Okay, one of the reasons contract is favorable is because we moved, and through this first quarter, $106,000 of salary expense down to what we call salaries and benefits. So a lot of people have come up to me and asked, Kerry, are we really spending that much more in salaries this year versus last year? The answer is no. We're spending about the same thing. But we used to have salaries spread into a number of different subcategories, and this year we put it all in one place so we could keep control of it. So that's the reason this is so favorable, that's the reason this is unfavorable, but when you put it together, it's really not much difference versus last year. Okay? So going back to last year, the other thing I wanted to point out is cost of sales improved from 49% to 39%. 10 points. We knew we were going to get better, but we didn't bake in a full 10-point improvement in this year. So that's why we're still beating the budget. Okay, I want to look a little bit more on the Beach Club performance versus budget. We've had this discussion many times. It's an amenity. It costs us money, but our job is to try to get that as low as we can. And again, the team is doing a great job in the kitchen, and I applaud them and service and everywhere else, because March year-to-date, we've lost about $35,000, and the same number last year was $47,000. So, I'm sorry, I keep doing it, versus our budget. Sorry about that. So we're 12,000 better than budget. And if you look at these numbers, it says it's on lower revenue. I don't believe that number. I think our business is up versus last year. I think we had some challenges in accounting when we first opened the Q Bar last year in the first quarter. And my belief, and I think Adam, you second that, and people in the kitchen, that if we had a better number, we would be better than last year. And when we budgeted this year, we basically used the same number as last year as our guidance. So we are doing much better in the Beach Club performance versus budget. We have a better gross profit. All along, all these numbers are better, whether it's our cost of sales, our gross profit, or our bottom line. Okay, so now I'll get it right. Versus last year, much bigger improvement. We're better by about $42,000. And I want you to understand this because we always have the conversation, well, should we charge a minimum, or, how much is this amenity costing us? The team is working very hard to get that lower and lower, so it's not costing us very much at all. So again, $42,000, a better cost of goods sold. So everywhere we look versus last year, it's doing very well. And the revenues, again, very close to last year, but last year was overstated. So if we look at the cost of goods sold, will it hold up? The circle shows what our actual cost of goods sold were the first 3 months for food, 41, 44, and 46%. The dotted yellow line is what our budget. We had a flat budget of 50% for the year. And here's what we plan on for the rest of the year. So if we could stay under that dotted line, we'll free up some more money. It'll buy us perhaps some more plants, okay? We'll get the place looking good. So that's what's going on with food. And if we look at beverage, again, the beverage cost of sales is not a straight line. The reason it isn't, and you've heard it before, as we get to the summer months, more of our sales take place at happy hour prices. And when you're having fun drinking at happy hour prices, our cost goes up for beverage. But so far, the first 3 months, remarkable, January 28%, 37.30. We're under the yellow line, more plants. So, doing a good job here. So that's the story on what I consider the base or normal, reoccurring financial situation. Now we have extraordinary expenses, and none of these expenses are included in what you just saw, because these span 2017, it'll be 2018, and I'm sure some of it's going to go into 2019. So what we have here first is Irma, our special assessment. We made an estimate, but that total Irma cost for cleanup would be $950,000. We've actually spent $995,000 today. So we are